We are Muskegon County at Work, spotlighting workers of local governments throughout our county, revealing what it takes to make our communities comfortable and safe. Hello, everybody. Your host here, DJ Hilson, with yet another episode of Muskegon County Municipalities at Work. And today, we're going to get down deep in the weeds. I won't say dirty because we're going to be talking about water. Although water can be clean and can be dirty. We're going to learn a lot about that today. And I have the distinct honor and privilege and pleasure of talking with Jim Petrie, who's the maintenance operator, maintenance supervisor over in the water filtration plant here in the city of Muskegon.
That's correct.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Great to have you. Really super excited about today because, as I told you before we got started, I know literally zero about water filtration.
For sure.
Even though I know the city has one, and certainly the county has a facility. And so I am really happy that you're here, because if I know nothing, then there's got to be a bunch of me's out there that know absolutely nothing.
I think most people take it for granted, right? We turn on the faucet and water comes out.
Yeah.
We have no idea on the amount of work and effort that goes into making that glass of drinking water.
100%. And so that's the beauty of this show, is that we get to explore different aspects of both county municipal government and really get to highlight what people do take for granted or advantage of, or not even understand what it takes.
For sure.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of this today, I always like to have my guests talk a little bit about themselves. So talk to us a little bit about where you came from, how you got to where you're at today, your journey, so to speak.
Okay. I grew up in the big town of Twin Lake.
Ooh. Okay.
Graduated from East Puffer in '84. Both my grandfathers, great uncles and whatnot on the Furman side and the Petrie side of the family were in the fire service.
Okay.
So community service oriented. I grew up in that environment. In '84, I became a junior firefighter or an explorer, and went through that program and kind of started in the fire service and EMS. From there, I joined the hazmat team, and acquaintances through the hazmat team, I started working for an environmental consultant, and did that until I took a career position in the fire service. And then when I retired, I was planning on, from the fire service and EMS, I was planning on doing something easy, if you will, working at a bait shop or a hardware store type of environment. And lo and behold, I ended up at the city, and it was a good fit, and moved up through the ranks there. So that's an interesting path. Obviously, as you said, your family history is one of public service, in really important public service in the first responding. And how many years did you spend as a first responder before you went into the second career? December of 2019 is when I retired as the chief of Blue Lake Fire, and put my boots on the floor and walked away from them. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So talk to me a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about the plant itself, the water filtration plant. Where's it located? How big is it? How many employees? It's
right next to Pierre Marquette Park, right on the lakeshore. I've got one of the best views at work. That's great. Second shift operator gets the pleasure of seeing the sunsets and whatnot. Makes that shift a little nicer. There's 9 of us that work there, and we're open 24/7, 365. There's always a person at the plant making water. Plant originated fire protection water in the early 1900s. Became a drinking water plant in 1928, and that building still is in use today. And then in 1936, they began filtering the water.
So I'm gonna try to start from the outside, work in. Where's the water coming from?
So it flows by gravity from Lake Michigan.
Okay.
Our intake well is about a mile out and about 70 feet of water.
And what does it take when we say intake well? I mean, is there a pipeline then?
60-inch pipeline.
Okay.
So 5 foot tall pipe that extends out into Lake Michigan and pulls water into our low service building or our intake building.
Okay. From there, what happens next?
So during the summer months, we actually add disinfectant to the water at the intake. But from there, it's pumped up and coagulants added. We use aluminum sulfate, a bunch of colloidal solids that want to stay suspended in the water. And what the coagulant does is kind of grab a holds of all those solids and makes them hold hands, if you will, in layman's terms, and makes them heavier, and then they want to settle out of the water. So coagulation, flocculation is the first process, then sedimentation. Once it goes through that, then it actually goes into a carbon sand filter, and then it's filtered and stored, then stored on site in a 5 million gallon water storage. And then from there, it's pumped out to the distribution system.
So this particular plant then, let's just say in a 24-hour period, how much water is it intaking?
So it's currently designed to do 40 million gallons a day. This time of year, we average about 10 million gallons a day, so we're about 25% capacity. During the summer months, we're up to about 22 million gallons a day.
You try to put that number in your head, right, and think about how much water that is. And I don't know if there's any perspective as to what that looks like outside of the number itself.
So it's we pump enough water in a minute to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
In 1 minute?
In 1 minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. So now the water comes in, it goes through that process, and essentially you're, for lack of a better way to describe it, you're cleaning the lake water to make it usable for humans, essentially.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now the distribution, how does that work?
So we handle at the filtration plant. We basically make the water, if you will, and then we push it out to the distribution system. There is a department in the city that's their main function, is to distribute that to the households. We do at the filtration plant. We do maintain like the elevated water towers and some of the pumping systems that have to be in line to push water as far as we push it.
All right. So is that the one on Sherman? Is that the only filtration plant in the city, or are there others?
That is the only one for the city of Muskegon.
Okay. And ultimately, I guess the closest then distribution center is where that you're pushing it to?
The closest would be the city of Muskegon. But we push water all the way to Michigan Adventure.
Okay.
And all the way south to the county line.
Okay.
And Muskegon Township to the east. So they are wholesale customers of us. We sell water to the city of Norton Shores, city of Fruitport, Roosevelt Park. Thinking here.
That's okay. Well, I mean, obviously location, right? I mean, the filtration plant being located right on the shores of Lake Michigan, allowing that mile-long pipe to allow you to draw, from, I won't say the deepest part of the lake, but a deep part of the lake. I mean, a mile out's a mile out.
Yeah.
And then being able to to clean enough water and distribute it not only to the residents of the city of Muskegon but other municipalities.
For sure.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot of work. There's a fair amount of work technology that goes into making that all happen for the taxpayer to get to that glass of water,
right?
If you will, or take a shower, or wash their clothes, and.
So from your side of the coin, as a maintenance guy, maintenance supervisor, maintenance person, what's your day-to-day like? What are you keeping track of, paying attention to? I mean,
there is so I have 5 guys that work for me on a regular basis. They're there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We also do distribution samples. We sample the distribution system to make sure that the water is clean and bacteria-free. So then in-house, we do all of our own laboratory analysis on that. And those guys, the guys that work underneath me, on a Tuesday, they could be cutting grass. They could be tearing a 1,000,000-gallon a day pump apart. So we get a very broad spectrum. And we've brought a lot of stuff that used to be farmed out in-house. It's been fun with that group to actually watch them grow as operators and as maintenance personnel.
So ultimately, it's pulling and pushing essentially. If you break it down in its simplest terms, I know there's a lot more technology to it, but how has technology advanced this? I mean, because certainly back in the 1920s, they weren't dealing with the same stuff you guys are dealing with today.
For sure.
How has technology allowed this plant to do what it does?
So a lot of the conventional treatment has stayed the same since the 30s, believe it or not. When we look at longevity as a whole or human life expectancy, the biggest factor that played into that was sanitation. Mm-hmm. Not only waste disposal, but cleaning drinking water. Not downplaying the medical aspect
Sure.
of everything either, but that's probably the biggest factor. So yeah, there's a lot of chemistry and stuff that goes into it as well, and yeah.
So when is there an ability to, as you describe the process in using some of these chemicals, is there an ability to reuse those chemicals, or is it a sort of a one and done? And if it's a one and done, what happens to the chemicals that are used? Where does that go? So
when we add the coagulant, we get those solids to separate out, and obviously there's the waste disposal of the solids that precipitate out of the water. The chlorine is used up in that disinfection. So, yeah, pretty much one and done as far as the chlorine is concerned, or the bleach, the sodium hypochlorite. Then we also add fluoride to the water for tooth decay, and yeah.
So everybody as they look, maybe brushing their teeth after this episode, they should be driving by the filtration plant, honking the horn, saying thank you for
sure.
my clean bill of health at my dentist, right?
Absolutely.
What as I guess, and I don't know if you've got the sort of the ability to answer maybe this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Future, is there any changes? I mean, whether it be, obviously there's always been this push about keeping our environment safe and clean, right? That includes our water systems and what have you, or technology coming down the pipe. Anything that you can give us as far as in the next 5 to 10 years that might change how this operation is done? So
there has been some technology upgrades over over the years. We've looked at microfiltration and those types of things, but those become cost prohibitive. The plant has had numerous upgrades throughout the years. Still unique in that, one of our filter buildings was built in 1936. But yeah, there's always cutting edge technology, and the forever chemicals obviously have put that in the forefront. The PFAS and that type of stuff. So as regulations change, that may push us in a different direction away from conventional treatment. But in the very near future, the next 20 years, I don't see any major changes happening.
Now, you've talked about the fact that this filtration plant satisfies the water needs for a lot of different municipalities. Obviously, each new municipality has its own unique form of, its own unique government system. And what have you either observed or seen as far as the ability to work together, collaborate to make sure that their residents' needs are being met just like the City of Muskegon's residents' needs?
That I think has been a very good working relationship with all our neighboring communities, in that they have a voice at the table. Obviously, when we talk about plant upgrades and stuff, we bring other municipalities in to have that discussion. Part of some of those conversations, but a lot of those conversations are above my pay grade, if you will.
Well, I mean, you served your time as chief, and there is that kind of that nice feeling of, I don't have to worry about some of those things, because sure. I'm just the guy, turning a wrench and making sure the water flows, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've had my day in the sun, if that makes any sense.
It makes total sense. Makes total sense. So, as far as the city is concerned, I mean, how have you? And I don't, obviously Blue Lake is a smaller community
for sure,
and you move into one of the larger communities here in the county government, working for the government. Mm-hmm. What have you found as to be some of the pleasant surprises, or maybe some of the challenges in doing that?
It was a really good fit right from Jump Street. I brought some experience and age, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah, and my years of learning people and being able to deal with people made this a nice transition. The City of Muskegon is a fantastic employer. It's been a great experience. I think it's worked well for both of us. Like I said, we were able to bring a lot of things that we used to farm out back in-house, and it's with its challenges, but yeah.
Have you, for those who, let's talk to both segments, right? So the folks that are maybe looking for their first job, and the folks that may be looking for a second career. How have you found working in government? I mean, essentially, you've been kind of working in government almost your entire career.
Sure.
But how have you found that? I mean, has it been worthwhile? Would you do it? Would you do the same all over again, kind of thing? I guess what I'm looking for is it a viable career path? Either way, whether you're just getting started or you're looking for a second career.
For sure, absolutely. My grandfather worked for the County Road Commission for several years. Was a great mentor, and that you're not going to get rich doing this job, son, but you're going to have a nice retirement on the backside of that. And it's fun having those conversations with the new guys that come into the plant, and we have a tendency to think of salary and not look at the benefit package that goes along with that. And obviously, as we get older and get a little longer in the tooth, we look at that a little harder than what we do when we're 20-some years old. So having those conversations with some of the new guys, and it has been fun to watch them grow. And I would encourage anybody to look towards municipalities, and I've worked in the private sector too, and there's kind of a different outlook, I think. Is in the private sector, it's like, what are you doing for me today, as opposed to, what are we bringing to the table long term?
Makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. So this question has been kind of floating around in my head, and I won't say it's a doomsday question, but what's the biggest fear or concern as all this stuff is going on, water's being pushed and pulled? What's the biggest concern that you always are mindful of and making sure it doesn't happen?
Obviously, producing good, safe, clean drinking water. Yep. And there's a lot that goes into that. Like I said, hourly testing. There is somebody at the plant 24/7, 365. And on an hourly basis, they're making sure that process is not okay, but perfect. Mm-hmm. So when we lay our head on the pillow at night, there's still somebody making water throughout the evening. So holidays, yeah, there's always somebody there. So
well, and I have to imagine that you're subject to some pretty strict regulations, rules, both at the state level and federal level.
For sure, yeah. The Safe Drinking Water Act gave federal teeth to that, and then kind of put that also in the state's lap too, to monitor and regulate. So we do monthly reports. We report all of our data. Those hourly tests all get compiled into a report that's sent to the state of Michigan.
So obviously there's not that you guys are certainly making sure everything is safe and clean, but the watchdog obviously moves up the chain, right? State and
sure.
Feds, making sure that whatever the level is supposed to be, you guys are hitting it.
Absolutely, and then some. Being a little bit more proactive and ahead of the game, if you will. So, and everybody that works at the plant at first is an operator, and so the guys that I say that work for me 3 days a week, they're operating every other weekend. So yeah, it's a nice combination of not only I got to turn a wrench today, but I understand when I'm turning this wrench why that is important. Mm-hmm. So from an operations standpoint.
Does, this just kind of popped in my head. Obviously it sounds like the flow is seasonal. Wintertime. Now obviously, the pipe's a mile out, so I'm assuming you don't worry so much about freezing and all that stuff. But how does the change in temperature, even as you get closer to the lakeshore, freezing lake levels and everything, how does that affect?
It does. It actually affects the biological growth that takes place too, right? So in the winter months, it's pretty much non-existent. It becomes almost mundane in the winter months because we'll go hours without doing any pump changes or chem feed changes or anything. Obviously, in the summer, with that bio growth and changes, you could be making changes every hour.
So I guess my takeaway from this is obviously for the folks that are watching this, when you jump in the shower, you brush your teeth, anytime you turn the water on, regardless of what it is, it's more likely than not coming from the filtration plant off of Sherman.
That is correct. Yeah. The City of Muskegon Heights they have their own filtration plant, but if you pay a water bill from Michigan Adventure down to the South County line, it most likely came from the City of Muskegon water filtration plant.
Well, I hope folks have learned a little bit more about what it takes to ensure that the water they're drinking and the water they're bathing in is why it's good for them in the sense that, as you indicated, way back in the day, filtration was not part of the equation, and whatever you put in your body, you put in your body, regardless of whether it was good or bad for you.
For sure.
Today, a little bit different story.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Jim, thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Great information, great insight, and I certainly walked away knowing a lot more than when I walked in today. And I hope everybody else has had the same experience.
Awesome. I would like to say that our door is always open. A tour of the facility would, our conversation didn't do it justice, but a tour of the facility, that's time well spent to understand where that glass of drinking water comes from.
I couldn't agree with you more. And hopefully, not only do we get some of the residents coming in to say, you know what, I needed to see this to really kind of see what it looks like, but certainly school groups as well. Get those kids out there.
Several school groups throughout the year come tours through the plant, and it's always a blast. Reese Puffer is one of our biggest tour groups, and of course, being a grad of Reese Puffer, take a little bit of pride into that. So. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for being a sort of a lifelong resident here of Muskegon County. Obviously, thank you for your service as a first responder, and thank you for enjoying your second career, making sure we all have safe water to drink. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, that takes care of our segment today. Again, Muskegon County Municipalities at Work, a great segment of interviews, both at the county and municipal level of government at all different facets. Continue to support and watch these particular interviews as you will walk away knowing and learning something that you didn't know before, and hopefully understand why you shouldn't take for granted the government services that we have to offer here. As always, your host, DJ Hilson. This show does not get any traction without the one ingenuity of Mr. Mike Vogus.